We've got people here in Nashville, live and in the room, and we have people also entering the room from Nashville and from around the country. And we also have our guest speaker today. Anya is going to join us from the Netherlands, and Anya is already online and ready to go. And Eric is also going to present today also. I want to take one quick look and see how many people we have. 11. So I think we're ready to go. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start the meeting, Eric. So let's just go ahead and get started. First, thank you for all being here. This is the second time we've tried a hybrid meeting. And like I said, we're having a little technology issue, but I think we're going to get through it. We're going to get through it just fine. Today, we've got our community speaker. Hey, good to see you. We've got our community speaker is going to be followed by Anya, who's going to talk to us about getting instant notification with Tableau books. Now, I've heard Anya speak before, and she's fabulous. So we're in for a real treat this afternoon. We will have a Cahoots quiz after Anya's done, and then our very own Eric Howard, Tableau ambassador, is going to speak to us about using TableauPublic as a development resource, using TableauPublic to develop your Tableau skills. Okay, let's get the meeting started. Lindsay, why don't you take over?
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you all for coming to attending the meeting today. I have invited Evan Alini from Vanderbilt. We've only been working together for a few months since he's taken over as the Tableau manager of the Vanderbilt project. And I just wanted to get to know him better, and I thought you all might enjoy it too. So Evan, can you tell us a little bit about your career trajectory into Tableau and where you are now?
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Lindsay. And thanks everyone for joining. So yeah, I am newly part of the Vanderbilt University community, but I've taken a fun, interesting, different journey as I actually came from the software side first, and now I'm actually a customer. So I was 8+ years as part of Tableau and Salesforce prior to joining Vanderbilt this year back in March. And I was always on the global services side of things. And I actually got my start, I'm an undergrad from Georgia Tech and got an industrial engineering degree, which over in that school, in that university, they would call it the imaginary engineer, because we didn't do any hands-on building. We just worked with computers and process control. So I took a database class and fell in love with it, and got a consulting job right out of school. And they said, what do you know about Crystal reports? And that was the tool that I knew nothing about, but it was either that or COBOL programming. And so I chose the wise decision and ended up with Crystal, which was the reporting tool back around Y2K. But then I actually found out and got hired by them as a full-time employee. And then it was another 8 years later after that in 2012, we're kind of jumping forward to when I joined Tableau and also moved here to Nashville. So I did go to my first user group meeting way back then, but then being an employee of the company, I kind of lost touch with the user community because I was part of the company. So I've definitely enjoyed it. And it was actually a Nashville tug that tuned me into this job posting to be the Tableau manager at the university, which is separate from the medical center, which I know Eric is a part of, but we have a separate deployment that I think used to be Tableau Online, and now we're Tableau Server. So it's been an interesting ride, and I'm happy to be part of the customer side of things now with Vanderbilt. So, yeah.
So when you were on the, company side, and you had a lot, you were doing trainings and teaching people and going to different clients, like what is it like? What's the transition been to be, now you're a customer, you're a client? Like, what have the challenges been? Like, what do you?
It's actually, I'm enjoying being back to a customer. So as I said, out of school, I graduated, became a consultant. So I got to see firsthand like the use cases for reporting, and even though it was Crystal at the time, but now being part of Vanderbilt, seeing it hands-on again, in a new setting and in a new industry because I was never part of higher education. So that's been fun, but I think it's just enjoyable to see how it gets used, you know, in the wild, if you will, compared to being a trainer for 8 years where I felt further and further away from real use cases. Because every week I was on the road, either training another customer or doing some consulting work. So I never had that long-term project experience, and now I'm back in it. So I'm really enjoying it as part of Vanderbilt.
Thanks. So to me, Tableau would be very new to a lot of administrators, users. I mean, just across the board, you're talking about hundreds of users who don't have much experience with Tableau unless they've had another job somewhere else. So what have you done to kind of create some excitement around this, or is the enthusiasm coming directly from the people as soon as they're exposed, or are you having to kind of build up the enthusiasm?
It's a little of both, like trying to build up that enthusiasm. I mean, being part of the product for 8 years, you know, I learned, even not being part of sales, but how they used to say Tableau sells itself. Just put the mouse in front of the user and they're going to fall in love with it. So I appreciate that aspect of Tableau being user friendly, but it's still, you know, certainly at a university that can go kind of its old school kind of ways and mentality, and change is difficult. And you know, Excel spreadsheets are the way to go, but it's not always the answer. So it's been a learning curve, almost a marketing role as well as a technical administration role. So I've enjoyed the challenge, but realized that, you know, things like these user group communities that I've come back to after 10 years of not being a customer certainly is a way to show that enthusiasm as well.
So a little birdie told me named LinkedIn that you like live music. So can you tell me a little bit, have you found a favorite venue in Nashville, or favorite thing that your musical experience you've had with us?
No, that little birdie was good. It was accurate. I do love live music, and you know, coming out of the tail end of the pandemic has been a challenge, and of course we're in Music City. And I'm one of those that doesn't fit the mold of country music. That's probably my least favorite. I'm more of a classic rock kind of jam band. Dave Matthews is one of my favorites. And actually the first concert I went to post-pandemic, which was still kind of in the midst of it, was the Pilgrimage Festival in 2021, because Dave Matthews was the headliner. So I got to see that, and I got to see many other artists. I think Better Than Ezra, the guy, is whoever the singer is for them, puts it on, along with Justin Timberlake, and it's done in Franklin. So that's a fun festival. And I was surprisingly at that festival, the Black Keys were actually a really good band that I had never seen live, and they are really, really fun and really energetic. So they were fun. You know, got to get to the Ryman, so I've got to plug the Ryman. I've been there several times. I think the last Ryman show actually I saw was Joe Bonamassa, who's like a somewhat less known but very talented guitarist that plays a lot of bluesy type guitar. He was at the Ryman, but then I can also go the other way where my wife is a big RuPaul fan, and we went to the RuPaul's Drag Race at the Ryman. So, you know, I kind of cover the spectrum for music. Anything that's fun to get dancing or singing and guitar playing, you know, is kind of my thing. Pretty much anything but country music, nothing against it, but I love the options, and Nashville is more than just country music city for sure.
Yeah, well, we're excited to have you in Nashville, you know, and staying here and getting your, you know, your hands dirty with Vanderbilt and showing us all that we need. So, and welcome to the Tug community in Nashville.
Glad to be back after years of absence. So thanks.
And for those of you who are joining online, we look forward to having you at the December Data Night Out if you're able to join us in early December. You'll get more notices about that too.
Okay, now for those of you who aren't in Nashville, there were several references to the Ryman. The Ryman is like, it's the shrine.
What do they call it? The mother church of country music.
Country music. So, I mean, if you play the Ryman, if you've ever been to the Ryman to hear a concert, it is probably the best venue I've ever been in to hear a concert. But artists from all genres are thrilled to play the Ryman. It's an honor to play the Ryman. So you've certainly seen some great concerts there.
Yeah.
And you've seen the breadth of what goes on in the Ryman.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Jim, thanks, Lindsay.
Okay, very good. Okay, now the technology is going to cooperate. We're going to have Anya speak now. Anya, you can unmute yourself and let's see what happens when you speak. I hope you become very large on the screen.
Well, let's see. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining. Am I big on the screen?
You are big on the screen. You are
Great.
fine
First success.
on the screen. I'm just going to give you a short introduction, then I'll let you introduce yourself and you can share screen. Anya's joining us from the Netherlands. She is I still say Zen master. I'm sorry. Anya's a visionary. She's a Zen master. She is an absolute expert at what she does. And I want you to know it's like 10:30 in the Netherlands right now.
41.
Yeah, there you go. You know, so this is extra over and above expectations in terms of her dedication at Tableau. Anya, why don't you go ahead and share your screen and let's go ahead and learn about webhooks.
Here we go. You should see my screen now.
We got you.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you for the introduction and thank you for the invitation as well. My time zones skills are not that good, but it's really nice to join all these different user groups around the world, and it's really great opportunity. As Jim introduced me, I'm a Tableau visionary, but originally I started really learning and working about Tableau from the different APIs and developer tools they have. And so I'm also a data dev ambassador. And today I'm going to talk about how to automate your Tableau server management with webhooks. And the title of the talk on the user group page was more on the notification side, which is also a part of the Tableau server management. And webhooks, you will see, it gives you a lot of different opportunities to either get custom notifications or even run some custom workflows and automate your work so you do less boring work and actually do something fun and interesting. Here you go. So today, by the end of the session, you will know how to automatically create a Trello card when a new workbook is published on Tableau Server or Tableau Online. Imagine if you have a big Tableau Server development in the company and you don't want everyone to just publish books in different projects. You actually have a process where you check that the workbook is designed correctly, the data source is correctly connected, all the schedules are set up properly, and just to make sure that you don't use up all the space on the server too quickly. So you have a process as a Tableau server administrator where you actually have a pipeline where people submit you the workbooks that they published, you go and check them, and then you say, okay, here we go, let's go and publish them. And imagine you're using Trello to run all your to-do lists. So you have a Trello board where you have a list with the cards, one card for every workbook. So every morning you go on the server, you check whether there are new workbooks in your development space, you add them to your to-do list, and then you go and have your morning coffee. So instead of you spending all this time manually going and checking whether there are new workbooks submitted for review, you can automate it using webhooks and do it, let it run just automatically. So every time you come to work, instead of doing this, you already see them appearing in your to-do list. So first, before we even start looking at webhooks, let's see what is an API. So maybe some of you are familiar with this, some of you haven't worked with them. And you might think, why am I talking about APIs if we're here to hear about webhooks? Well, webhooks are actually running based on the APIs. They are allowing you to connect two different applications or two different platforms together. So API is a way for two applications to communicate with each other. Imagine you have a phone and you want to check a weather forecast for the locations that you're at. You open an app and you say, I'm in Nashville, Tennessee, and I want to see the weather for tomorrow. So you don't even think about it, but your application for the weather sends a request to a database that stores the data about the weather in your location. It gets this request, The server thinks about a little bit and then sends the response back. And that's the response that you see in the app. You see the weather for tomorrow, for example. So that's how an API works. So the API here is this middleman that takes your request, sends it to the database, to a certain application, and then forwards the response from this application back to you so you can see it. So that's how an API works. And you can see that you need to send the request first to get the response. So that's in programming and API world is called polling. So you kind of send your poll every time and see whether there is a response. But webhooks are a little bit smarter versions, let's say, so of an API. Webhooks work only when something actually happens. So there is an application and then an event happens in this application, and only then your response is sent, and then the request, is sent, and the response is sent back with the information that's needed. So that's what we're going to do today. We will set the webhook. It will stay on our server and listen for the new event. In this case, it's going to be a new workbook published. And then whenever this event happens, 5 a.m., 10 p.m., doesn't matter, the webhook will take the data about this new workbook and do whatever you set up for this webhook to do. It can be sent an automated message, even call someone and read out the information about this workbook. Or it can be, like we're going to look at today, publish a new card on your Trello board so you can have your to-do list updated automatically. And here I have two major platforms that I usually use to set up these webhooks. So it's either called If This Then That, IFTTT on the left side, and then the Zapier, that's another very popular platform to set up webhooks that you can use. Today we're going to look at If This Then That, just because it's really easy to set up and it gives you quite a generous free tier, so you can play around with different setups of webhooks and test them without thinking about the cost if you're just looking around and checking out this service if it's right for you. So that's the webhooks that we're going to look at today, and that's the use case that we're going to listen to the new workbook published, and then once it happens, our webhook will use the URL that we will give, and we'll look how it works. It will send the response to Trello, and Trello will post the new card, will create the new card for you. And the webhooks are available in Tableau, starting from the version 2019.4. And actually, since then, there are quite a few new events were added. But in general, these are all the events that you can set up webhooks for, so you can listen for on your server or Tableau Cloud. And they can be grouped as the events related to data sources. So you can check when the data source refresh failed, or when a new data source is created or deleted. Workbooks, quite similar types of events, when the workbook is updated or created or again deleted. And then also some related to admin, when the admin users were promoted or demoted, and creation of labels as well. And as you can see, so originally there were only 13 events. So Tableau is adding more events with recent releases. So hopefully there will be many more events quite soon. But I think these are already covering some of the major events that you want to track on Tableau server. And these are the steps. This is the outline of how we're going to go about setting this webhook. So first, we're going to use this platform, If This Then That, and we're going to create this webhook endpoint, so-called. So this is going to give us this URL that is going to connect with the Tableau server, and will take the information about the new workbook and pass it to, in our case, Trello, but to the second application that you need. Then once we set it up, it's always good to test the webhook just to make sure that everything works outside of Tableau first, and then we can move on to setting it in Tableau. We are going to use today a platform that's called Postman. If you have not worked with it, I highly recommend. It's a great tool to start working with APIs and testing them and building them. Especially with Tableau webhooks, it's a great option because Tableau provided a collection of code snippets, so you don't even need to write any code. You just need to give your passwords, your details, and it will be doing everything for you. And then once we have all this set up, we will create a personal access token, and I will show how to do it and what it is. And then we will sign into Tableau server using Tableau REST API, because webhook has to be created on your Tableau server. So Tableau server needs to know what to listen to. So we need to log into the server, set up the webhook, and then we will see how it will work when we actually will create a new workbook. I'm going to share websites on my screen. So if it is too small, let me know. I will make it a little bit bigger. So let's go. Let's see. Can you see my screen now?
We've got you two big pumpkins.
Yeah, I decided to make it a little bit themed of the Halloween, since we're very close to the day. And here it is. This is my Trello board. It's very empty now, but you can see that I have the list where I will get my new cards created. And if I click on this card, you can see that the title gives me the name of my event, when it happened, and then the description gives you the information about the workbook that was published. So you can see it tells you the name of this workbook, the number, the ID of the workbook on the server, when it was created as well. So you can quite easily find this afterwards on the server if you want to go and check it. So that's what we will get at the end. So let's see. Here it is. That's the website that we're going to use, if this then that. So once you create an account, you can create up to 5 so-called applets, as they call them. So these are the applications that are setting up the webhook, the connection between 2 applications. So in our case, it will be the Tableau server and Trello. So let's click create button. And again, as I was saying, it's very nice and very visual. So I say, if this, I want to say a webhook. So that's my first trigger. And you can choose between 2 options. You can just receive a request, which is just yes or no, the event happened or not. Or you can receive a request with JSON payload. So JSON payload is the more verbose response from an API, from an event. And if I go back to my Trello board, this description is exactly this JSON payload. So more information about the workbook rather than just it was published. So we want to actually get more details. So I'll choose the JSON payload option. And I will call it workbook published. So we know what happens. And it's important, again, for different platforms. I think it might be different, but here it's important to use only the letters, numbers, and underscores. Otherwise, it might not work. So let's create the trigger. So this was our trigger. So we're saying when the web request will come, we want to do something. So if this happened, then that. What? We're going to create a Trello card. So just one option, Trello card. And it actually gives you quite a few options inside this creation of Trello card. So I have already connected my account, my Trello account here. I can select the board where I want to publish it. So my Tableau data dev. List name. So if I go back, my list name is new workbooks published. But actually, if you don't have the list, it will be created for you automatically. So Okay, so that's my list name. Then I can choose even where to put it. I want to put it at the top of my list. The title, I can just keep event name. So event name, you remember we called it workbook published. So that's going to be, instead of event name, this placeholder that's going to appear. And then I can add also add, and then add the ingredient and say, what time did this event occur? So in my card, the title will be actually having this date and time. So it's very nice to keep track and see when the, say, latest event happened. So that's going to be my title. And then the description, you see, by default, it's already adding this JSON payload. But if it doesn't have, here, I can, again, click this add ingredient button and add JSON payload. That's going to be our text, more information about the workbook. I can even assign members. So if you have several people in your team, you maybe want them to be pinged when the new card created, or maybe assign someone to do this check of the workbook. I can apply labels. So these are just generic ones, but I have this to-do label already set up, so I will just add it here as well. And that's it. So I click create action and then click continue. That's just to review that we want to exactly publish this webhook, click finish. And our webhook, the URL that will keep listening to this event is created and active. So you can see this big button connected. So that means that it's there and it works. Actually, let's check whether it works or not. So if I go to my account, that was a little bit tricky to get to my services, right? And then I go to webhooks. Here we go. And then documentation section. It took me some time to figure out this path, so it's not very straightforward, but I'm actually going to share some links at the end of the session, and one of them is the blog post I wrote how to set up webhooks on this platform, so you can follow this afterwards as well. So what we see here in this documentation is the key, so it's a unique ID for this webhook, but also it gives you an option here to see the URL that we're going to use to tell Tableau when the event happens, which URL to ping to create it, to do the following action, in our case, to post the card. And we can test it directly from here. So instead of this placeholder event, I will say the name of our event, workbook published. And make it a little bit bigger, and then I can say test, and it just tells me JSON event has been triggered. So it just says, okay, you set up everything correctly, it actually worked. So once the event will happen, you will see the result as you expect. So that's great. So now let's go to now let's go to the Postman. So we set up the webhook on platform. Now let's create it on Tableau server. So the Postman platform allows you to connect to different APIs, to create your own APIs, to explore what other people's build. So if you are looking into exploring this area, it's a really nice place to start. So again, I already logged into my account, and I already even uploaded the collection of these code snippets from Tableau, but you can find them, and again, I will share these links later. You can find them on Tableau GitHub account, where you can see all these different collections. You just download them from the GitHub account, and then you import them directly in Postman. And when you have done all these steps, we make it even bigger, you will see on the left, you will see these folders. If I go to JSON folder, you will see that there are different code snippets for different things you can do with the webhooks. So first you need to sign in into your server, then you can create a webhook, and then you can also test or delete a webhook. So that's what we're going to use today. Slightly small. And another thing before we continue is also not only the code snippets, but also there is such thing in Postman as the environment variables. So when you work with APIs, you obviously need to have, say, for example, passwords to log in into your Tableau server. Then we will need to use the URL for the webhook that we just created. So all these different things. And instead of you retyping them or copy pasting them somehow, somewhere, you can always save them as your environment variables. So here on the right, I have this Tableau webhooks environment that again was automatically created for me when I uploaded this code snippets. So Tableau really did a great job here. And we can see, clicking on this I button in the top right corner, we can quickly see what are the variables. You can see there is nothing there because I haven't set it up yet. And if I click edit, I will see just what are the options. So we will need to tell the name of our server, the link to our server, the content URL, and all these different details. So we're able to use this code and to create the webhooks. So let's actually start with that. So first, the server. And for the purposes of this demo, I'm going to use my developer sandbox Tableau online. So you can also sign up for the developer program and get this sandbox too, so you can play around and test all these different APIs. So the server first variable is going to be my URL of the server, this first part. So you just paste it into the current value column, and the content URL is everything, is this part, not everything, but the part after the site. So you have the URL of your Tableau server, then site, and then you have the name of the site. So that's going to be the content URL. Here we go. And then you have two options. You can log in into your server using username and password, or a personal access token and personal access token, yeah, with the name and the secret. So username and passwords are great, but it's not recommended to use this when you're working with APIs because it's not 100% safe. It's more complex to change your password and your username. If you share it somehow somewhere in the open, it will create a lot of headache. But personal access token is very easy to revoke. It can be revoked immediately if you say realize that it's shared somewhere where you didn't want it to be shared. So we are going to use that, and it's a recommended practice for this kind of use cases. So these are the path name and path secret. So to create a new one, again, let's go back to Tableau Online. The same goes for Tableau Server. You just go to your account. So this icon in the top right corner, let me make it slightly bigger. And you just click on it and go to My Account Settings. And there, here we go. If we scroll in the settings further down, we see the section Personal Access Tokens. So I already have one token here, which I created for testing, but I will create a new one. Tableau user group. So that's going to be my name, the name of my token. While I have it, let me just put it in the path name section. And then if I go back, I will need to click the button Create New Token. I get the token secret, which appears only once, so make sure to save it somewhere. So I will copy it and close the window, and you can see that now I have this personal access token saved. I go back here and I will save my secret here in the environment. So we need to make sure that we save all these details. Great. So we're now ready for the first step of connecting our webhook to our server. We are ready to sign into the server. And so we need to choose the snippet on the left side that Tableau created. So we need to first sign in. So we're signing in with personal access token. That's the one we're going to use. So I just click on it. I get this very simple code here already created. And you can see that all the parts of our code in this case and in future cases, which are in double curly brackets, and here in Postman, they are also in this kind of orangey color. These are all the variables that we just set up in the environment for our environment. So you don't need to retype here anything or change anything. If you have them saved in the environment, they will be just populated automatically in the code. So nothing really to do here. So first we will need to sign into the server. So again, the code is there. I just need to click send and hopefully it works, and it is working fine. I get the response saying that, yes, these are your credentials. This is your user ID, and it gives me the token for the session to sign in into the server. So here is the token. I will need to use it later on. So I need to add it into my variables, into the environment. So I copy that and go back. Where's my environment? Here. And you can see, actually, we haven't added anything in these sections, but since we already signed in into the server, Tableau automatically, or rather, I guess, Postman automatically added site ID and the Tableau authentication token as well. So actually, if I go back, yeah, that's the same one that we just got. So I actually don't even need to copy and paste anything. It's automatically added, which is great. So these are the variables we have. Now let's also add the webhook name, which was workbook published. As we set up, where is my, yeah, that's the one. We called it workbook published, great. And then let's see, we need also to add the webhook URL before we continue. So now we need to create it. So we need to actually tell Tableau where to look for it. So if I go to not settings, services, webhooks, and documentation, and that's the URL that we're going to use. So again, let me just workbook published. That's the name of our webhook. And I just copy this URL and added webhook URL here. Make sure that there are no spaces. Sometimes it adds them, that everything is okay. Otherwise, it will give you an error, but it looks fine. And then the last thing we need to add here is the webhook event. And that's the event as Tableau called it in the documentation. So I do have the documentation here. And we need to find the name for the workbook created. Here it is. So the event name will be workbook created. So again, I just copied and paste where it is, workbook event. And again, remember to save. Now we have all these variables, additional ones. So you remember the first step was for us to sign in into the server. We did that. Now we can actually create this webhook. So let's find this snippet again on the left side, create a webhook. And depending on which version of Tableau Server or Tableau Online you're using, so there is just a slight difference in syntax, let's say so. So create the webhook, a simple one, is for an older version. Create a webhook 2020.3 and older, that's and later, sorry, that's the ones for the version 2020.3 and later. So I'm using one of these versions. So I go for this snippet. Again, I just click on it. I have a new tab appearing here, create a webhook. And you can see, again, I have this very simple snippet here. And it has the placeholders that will send the request to Tableau server using Tableau REST API to create this webhook, to connect our if this then that with our Tableau server. So we just need server and site ID, which we already saved in the variables. So I just click send. And I didn't get an error, but I did get a message saying that we created everything. We created our webhook. This is our URL that we added for the webhook on the platform. Great. The owner of the webhook, I was creating it, so it's me. And then the details of the webhook, the name and the event, and we get the unique ID of the webhook on Tableau server. So we need to copy this and add it into our variables. Where it is, webhook ID. Let me save that. So we now all have all the details, and we actually now are able to test our webhook. So if I get this snippet, here you see you get the same server and site ID, but you also will need to indicate the webhook ID, which we just got and added into our variables. So if I click send, I'm not going to get anything exciting here, but the main thing that I'm going to look for in the response is the 200 status code. So if you ever worked, that's too zoomed out. If you ever worked with the APIs or somehow with the web-based applications, 200 status code means that your your request is received and it's all working fine. So it's all correctly connected. So in our case, that's great. That's what we want to see. And if I actually go to my Trello, here is my new workbook, new card rather, published. You can see when I open it, my JSON payload actually has all the kind of dummy placeholders. Resource name is resource name, event type is test. So it's obviously a test. It's not the real payload. So if I just take my Trello out, and if I go to the Tableau online and create a new workbook, let's make it side by side, make it something very simple with Superstore. We don't even need to build anything. Let's just bring region into the view. And okay, I'm really happy with this workbook. I just want to publish it. So let's click publish. Let's name it test region workbook. I'll save it into my default project, click publish. And once it's published on the server, here you go. You see, we got the new card created. And when I go in, I see here test region workbook. So that's the one that I just created. Unfortunately, it comes a little bit not pretty formatted JSON in the description, so you can edit it and format if you want. But you did get all the details about this workbook, and we have the label. It's all as we wanted. And that's how you can automate a lot of different small tasks. Again, Trello was just one of the examples, but if this and that, they have a lot of different applications that you can work with, and you can explore what other people already built, and really have fun with that. And just to close, yes, some links, and I will share the slides afterwards as well. So there are some links to the webhook documentation. You can also download the collection that I was showing. There are quite a few examples as well online, and now you know that Tableau has a native Slack integration, but at the basis of it, it's the webhooks. So you can also see how it is now part of the product. And if you found this interesting or want to learn more about different developer tools, I would really encourage you to join the Tableau Developer Program, where you can get access, as I mentioned earlier, to your personal Tableau Online sandbox, but also to the great Slack community where you can ask all the different questions and have answers, and just enjoy access to different resources. And I believe monthly or quarterly spring demos as well to see all the new features coming up. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Anya, that was great. I'm a desktop guy, you know that. And you start talking about server and things, I get lost quickly, but you explained it so well that I was even tracking with you. And I saw the comments, and a lot of comments were coming in that were very positive comments. Are there any questions first from anybody in the room here? Okay. Any questions from anybody, any of our virtual participants? Michael, I saw you out there quite often. You can unmute yourself and ask a question if you need to.
I'm not sure Michael's connected with full computer. I'm not sure.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Limited to chat.
for those of you who don't know Michael, Michael's in Atlanta. When we went virtual, Michael became a member of our group and several other groups, if you know Michael. Eric,
I guess one of my questions for you, Anna, is can a workbook author just do this themselves, or do they have to get the permission and involvement of the server administrator?
Yeah, that's a great question. So you don't need, I see your questions well in the chat. You don't need to update anything on Tableau server itself, but you need to be, as a user, you need to be able to access the REST API and send the request. So I know that in bigger deployments, this might be more on the discretionary to the Tableau server admin. So you need to check, and you can check again using what I just showed you using the Postman. And if you do get the error or you get the response that you can't do that, then you need to talk to your server administrator.
Okay, thank you.
Eric, I think I saw that Michael's ready with a question.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is more cybersecurity. You remembered how personal password tokens are unsecure. I agree. In fact, the only ones that still use it actively is like Google Cloud, to be honest. But the issue with personal access tokens is that they're the only way for you to do automation in terms of data if you want to set this up on a scheduler. So with this webhook, what I'm wondering is, how easy is it for you to parameterize in your connections the password or the personal access token? That way, somebody then on cybersecurity in the back end can set up a process that's probably a customized process to then change out the personal access token once a day, once a month, once a year, you know?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And actually, personal access tokens are not valid if you are not using them, if nothing is using them. I think it's 30 days or 60, but there is a limit. And also they expire, even if you use them, they expire after a certain period, like a year or something like that. So there is that already embedded. I think there is a way, I'm not sure actually, but that's a great question. There might be a way when you can use the REST API to generate them, but then you still need to log in somehow to the REST API. And I'm actually...
On the Tableau server, there is a personal access token And this is kind of like one of the harps about tab command, and I haven't figured out if they finally fixed it. So it's basically one administrator has a personal access token
Right.
that doesn't need to reset, and they have to
Oh,
enter in
yeah.
a one-time NSA at the
Yeah,
same
yeah.
time. And it should be the master one for the server,
Yeah.
for your online server, but
Yeah, but that's
the
a
person that should be pulling them.
yeah. But that's a great question. Yeah, but also I think you can't actually use password and username anymore if you're using from a certain version of Tableau, and if you want to log in using REST API, because they want to kind of force people to have this changeable token rather than some kind of password that can.
You should, as site admin or server admin, still be able to use it, though.
Yeah, but
So-
the usual users, yeah, they should be not able to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll have to find out from I'm gonna ask that at the next server user group meeting and find out.
Yeah, that's a great
about
question.
that.
I'm also going to
Probably you
check.
guys,
Yeah.
okay? Because
Very good.
they're supposed to fix that.
Okay,
Because otherwise Tableau can't connect to most modern Azure systems. And then that becomes the cloud to connection to cloud to issue. And then you have a site-to-site VPN issue.
Yeah.
All kinds of problems. So yeah,
okay.
I'll figure it out. I'll let you know. But thank you for answering it initially, okay?
Okay, thank you very much, Anya. If any of you, you heard Anya talk about the developer sandbox. And if any of you want more information on that, you can contact, I'm sure Anya will answer your question, or you can contact Eric, or you can make the mistake and contact me, and I will send it over to Eric, and he might be able to answer your question. But that's it's totally free. You're not charged for it. It's out there. It gives you a chance to work and learn in a free Tableau environment. So just feel free to reach out to either Eric or, like I said, make a mistake, and I'll see that Eric gets the message on it. I think we're ready to move on to trivia time. You ready to go, Eric?
Yep, I'm ready to go.
Okay.
Here's the PIN number. So if you want to play, please connect. 306-9353. Today, we're going to be talking about all the different features that have been added in 2022. So that would cover 2022.1, 2022.2, 2022.3. So it's a pretty straightforward quiz today. So I'm going to show you the feature, and you're going to get to choose which version it came out on. And I sent out the links last night in the email. So hopefully you got to study a little bit, and we'll be ready to go. I saw we had about 15 people online, so I'm going to give it just another moment. We are not playing for any swag today. We've had problems getting swag, so we're not going to do that today. This is just for bragging rights. So let's get started. All right. So new features in 2022. 3, 2, 1, let's go. Data Guide makes it even easier to find data related to selected visits. I'm interested in playing with this one, but we don't have that on our server yet. So I'm sort of frozen out of that feature right now. And the correct answer is 2022.3. It was just released last week. I've got to move my screen because it's over my next button. All right, Pam, way to go. Now, number 2, Workbook Optimizer helps you boost performance by understanding the trade-offs you're making in your designs. Is that 2022.3, 22.1, 22.2, 22.4? Tick, tick, tick. And the correct answer, 22.1. So it's been out for a while. We just have not been able to use it yet. All right. And Evan takes the lead. Way to go, Evan. Autosave in the browser lets you stay in the flow of analytics and resume work exactly where you left off. This is a web editing feature. That's something that I don't do because I do a lot of security in mine. So they do not let you test security in a web browser yet. Someday I hope they add that feature to server. But the correct answer is 2022.2, came out middle of the summer. And who's in the lead? Ooh, Evan's taking a solid lead. Enterprise deployment guidelines, the deploy server allows you to deploy server using a reference architecture for availability, scalability, and security. So they're giving you a guide, basically a default template for installing the server and configuring the server. Which version was it? 2022.1. So again, early January is when that came out. And Evan's taking a commanding lead. All right, can anybody catch him? Dynamic zone visibility creates sophisticated and interactive dashboards that dynamically reveal dashboard elements. That's a relatively new feature. I'm going to be excited to play with it. And when I do my presentation, I'm going to challenge you to use it on a few things. So correct answer, 2022.3. Way to go. Data stories automate the analysis, build, and communication of insights with plain language explanation. Data stories. I'm not sold on this feature yet. I'm going to have to play with it and see it in action before I'm a believer. I don't know. I'm not a big user. Oh, 2022.2. There you go. So it came out this summer too. And Matt catching up. Way to go. In-product exchange lets you access Tableau Exchange from within Tableau Desktop. So yeah, this lets you connect to different, sort of like GitHub, different features that you can use in your Tableau. I just used one of their accelerators. And that was in 2022.2. All right, who's Shara? Coming on up. All right. Ask Data Phrase Builder. The new add filter buttons provide an intuitive click-through workflow for your Ask Data. Wow, y'all answered that fast. 22.1, way to go. And Evan jumps back out in the lead again. Next to last, here we go. Table extensions add new depth to seeing and understanding data. This looks to be a pretty powerful new feature if you're do a lot of Python and R and other things. Allows you to work on the tables in the back end. And correct, 22.3 is that version. And now for the last question of the day. Who did the Tableau 22.2 feature overview video? Here's the clue. They did the presentation today. We were lucky to have her. All right. Everybody got that one right. Way to go. Excellent. All right. Let's see who won. Number 3 is Matt. And then number 2 comes in with Shara. And of course, Evan took the top place. Nobody could catch him. But hey, Shara got close. You came up close on the end there. So way to go. All right. So at this point, I'm not going to stop sharing because we're sort of behind on time. So Jim, I'm going to do my own introduction.
Okay, very
And
good.
just get started with my own presentation, okay?
You got it.
Excellent. So today I'm going to talk about using TableauPublic as a development resource. I'm glad you all joined us today. Tableau Public is more than a bunch of pretty vizzes, and I'm hoping to show you a few things in Tableau Public that will make your Tableau journey a bit easier by downloading them and picking them apart. Then I'm going to show you some of the authors that you need to explore. But a little bit about me. This is my first year as a Tableau ambassador. I've been blessed to present at the last 2 Tableau national conferences. My first one was on data governance in 2021, back when it was virtual. And then I did a Jumpstarting Your TUG presentation last year in Las Vegas. I've published the link to this presentation in the chat. Most of the slides in this presentation work like this. So you'll see the author's Tableau Public homepage, and then you'll see the Tableau workbook that I'm calling out. If you click on the publisher's page, it'll take you to their page in Tableau Public. If you click on the workbook, it'll open that workbook for you in on the page. And then there's also some blog links there to call out where they publish what they've done. Okay, so that's enough about me. Oh, well, when I'm not being creative with Tableau or participating in the Tableau community, I'm an outside guy. I love climbing, I love paddling, and Tennessee is a beautiful place to do both of those things. So let's get started with Tableau Public. If you haven't already done so, the first thing you need to do is create a Tableau Public account. Once you do that, get back to my profile, you will be able to publish your vizzes, save your favorite vizzes. It can be hard to find things again and again on Tableau Public, so I really recommend you favorite things. And another important feature is being able to follow the different authors that you like to follow what they publish. All right. So once you're on Tableau Public, click on that. The next thing you'll want to do is subscribe to Viz of the Day. That way you'll get a daily stream of inspiration into your inbox. But inspiration can't strike unless you open the emails and spend some time with the Viz. Spend 5 to 10 minutes studying the analytics and exploring the interactivity. Each of the different sections have a see all. So if you click into that, you'll be taken to more Vizes in that category, which is the next thing that I want to show for you. They have just recently done a redesign of this Discover Tableau page. And so they'll show you trending topics, and then there are 15 different categories that they have curated with Tableau Public. And I was going to spend some time exploring this. Hey, resumes are back, but these are, I guess, driven by an analytics engine, and they're dynamic, so you can't depend on seeing the same thing twice. There was one that I did like. I think this resume from, and I'll butcher his name, Mambiza, is very interesting. I like his work experience. It shows this, and then a big flat space where he says, "Oh, I was a professional basketball player." So I found that quite interesting. So spend some time exploring those 15 topics or categories that they've curated in Tableau Public. My favorites, like, are the resumes. I like to dig into what people are doing and see how they display their information. I work in healthcare and do revenue and healthcare data. So I like the business dashboards and performance dashboards. All right, so now that you're signed up with Tableau Public, you've subscribed to Viz of the Day, you've explored a few Vizes. Now what do? The next step, you want to dive in, you want to download some workbooks, you want to reverse engineer them, pick them apart, you want to break them, you want to push them to the limit and see how they do what they do. And then I'm going to challenge you to make them better. So let's take a look at how to do that. So I've already downloaded Andy Kriebel's Viz of the one of his workbooks. And if we go to his start page there, can I minimize that? I'll just close it. You'll see he's got a workbook that has different sections on different types of analytics. And my buttons are in the way. Sorry about this. They keep scrolling down on me when I try to move this. So I'm going to go ahead and you can go into any of the different sections and you just want to look at how the interactivities work. If you want to see how it's put together, you can drill into that specific workbook page and then look at, oh, this is a bar chart. So it's categories on, or a dimension on rows and a measure on columns. And then he adds color so that we get that. And then he's filtering by region, probably as part of his interactivity. The next thing I want to point out, save a little time here since we're on this screen. One of the things I always interested in is what the data looks like behind this beautiful Viz. And so you can go into the data tab for, it is not working right. Anyway, so you can go to data, and I'm not sure why that's not doing that, but there is a place where you can export to CSV under the data menu. It's not going to show it to me. Sorry about that. Must be something with the recording because it worked fine in practice. So you can export it to CSV and look at what the data is for any of these different data sources that Andy's using. So let's go back to my presentation. And we'll look, sadly, not all of the Vizes on Tableau Public are downloadable. Because you can get into them once it's downloaded, you can pick it apart. Several people don't choose to download their personal information. Their Vizes about people's, biorhythms and things you don't want people to download and get into. So if you do publish to Tableau Public and you want that information to be not get out in the wild, I'll put it that way, don't let people download it. But if you do see one that is, not downloadable, play with them online anyway, explore the analytics and their interactivity, and just sort of see if you can figure out how they do what they do. All right, so next let's take a look at Andy Kriebel. He's the most followed author on Tableau Public. The visual vocabulary is the most viewed Viz on Tableau Public. So if we go take a look at that, Andy is trying to help you figure out which type of visualization to use depending on the analytics that you're wanting to do. So if you're doing deviations, then he will take you to these types of visualizations. You want to use a bar chart, stacked bar, spine. If you're doing a correlation type analytics, then these would be the type of analytics you should use. If you're doing a distribution, then you would want to use a histogram, box plot, or that sort of thing. So this helps you figure out when you get that request from somebody, what types of visualizations you could use to explore that type of data. And that's what Andy is trying to do with the visual vocabulary. Back. But he's got a great blog from the data school. He's got an excellent YouTube channel, and his TableauPublic profile has just all sorts of workbook on how to do specific things. A lot of them are for Makeover Monday. That's his thing, but he does a lot of work in specific questions. So all of them are downloadable. They all use public data sources so that you can pull them apart and see how they're doing what they're doing. All right, so next up, I want to show you Jeff Plantner. So Jeff's Tableau Chart Builder is a step-by-step guide to building 20 charts in Tableau. I love the way that he's done his interactivity and his layout. If you need to do a line graph, he's got step-by-step instructions. So once you've used Andy's guide to figure out what you need, if you don't want to go reverse engineer it by looking at his workbooks, you can come to this one and see what it is. Also, Jeff sort of tells you here in the plot what type of analytics it could be used for change over time, or a slope chart for, again, change over time, but this is the type of thing you want. And for histogram would be for distribution. So it's just a different way of doing what Andy's does. But I love his controls. You can use the buttons to go through the different charts. The home button takes you back to the main page. So it's a really well done workbook. So again, download it, pick it apart, see how you did all that stuff. Kevin Flairledge also has a chart catalog. This is a community project with 100 different chart types. It is a visually beautiful sort of thing, but I'm not really keen on the interactivity. I don't know if it's my browser on the Mac or what, but it just seems to hang and snag on me a bunch. But if you're into exotic chart types, check this one out and see how it's done. The hidden gem on this is the Tableau reference guide. So he's got a link to this community. Well, I think it's Jeff Schaefer's project actually, but it's got 882 curated links on all of these different topics: graphing, color, calculations, mapping, with links to specific blog articles on how to do these specific things. So that is a really great link that you can spend a lot of time with. And again, it's right there on TableauPublic on Kevin's site. Next up is his brother and twin, Ken Flairledge. This is DataFam Colors. It's a community project for custom color palettes. If you go to the site and or to the workbook and download it, I've already done that since I'm doing a live video. If we go look at this one, once it's downloaded, you'll have the start page and the palettes and the other palettes, dark palettes, I guess light palette and dark palettes. There's a download button that will allow you to download this preferences.tps file that once it's downloaded, you can move to your Tableau repository, and then all of these color palettes will be available for you to use in your workbooks. Otherwise, you're going to have to sort of cut and paste these codes into Tableau to create your own color palettes, which is not a lot of fun. It's a lot easier to just go download Kevin's workbook and then export it he's got an excellent blog here on how to do that. And so I won't delve into that any more than that. Next up is Brian Moore. Brian has a KPI dashboard that is a guide to building interactive business dashboards. This is an excellent viz that brings together all the elements of Tableau: containers, parameter actions, set actions, and of course, calculations. Kevin has a blog link about how he built this. He's got an excellent video presentation on YouTube that walks through building it. So you can go step by step with him on how to do that. I've incorporated a lot of features of this dashboard into my business dashboards. The one thing that helped me the most was the containers. It's always an issue for me for organizing my workbooks, but Kevin does it really well. And my challenge for you on making things better, I mean, this is a wonderful workbook, but I'll challenge you to download it and then download 2022.3 and see what you can do with some of those new features to make this better and use those features for doing that. All right, next up, Jim Diener, our own Jim Diener, is all about calculations. Jim's profile has a slew of Tableau fundamentals. Check out Jim's public profile and his associated blog for deep dives into fundamentals on all sorts of calculations. Now, if you didn't know it, Jim is the most prolific person on the Tableau community forums. He answers more things than notes. So he takes that information and creates these workbooks that help answers those. And another thing about the TableauPublic, it does have links to those users' blogs on there. So you don't have to have a presentation like mine with those links. If you've got the TableauPublic author, you can get to that information also. And again, Jim has blogs on pretty much all of his different presentations that he's got, or workbooks that he's got on TableauPublic. I just picked out filtering LODs because I liked it. All right, so where Jim is about the fundamentals, Jeff Schaefer is a data scientist. Jeff looks at higher order issues in Tableau and how to solve them. I'm always tripped up by missing data. Jeff's data densification dashboard talks about how to take sparse data and fill it in so that it makes a prettier dashboard. So you've got domain padding, scaffolding. There's all these different types of ways of dealing with missing data. You know, I always have this conception of how my visualizations are going to look. And the first one rarely looks like that because usually I've got missing data. So this has been a big help on how to use data densification to make that better. Sometimes it's just right clicking in Tableau and saying, you know, make the nulls zeros or something, but there's all sorts of different ways of dealing with that. And Jeff talks about them. Next up is Anya Prostavota. I hope I'm saying that right. I'm probably not. So Anya told us today about how to do webhooks in Tableau, and she is one of the premier data devs on the Tableau site. So if you're one of those who wants to dig into the guts of Tableau, I would recommend checking out her blogs and her workbooks for more information on how to do that. I'm a cut and paste R programmer, so when I need to build stuff like that, I stand on the shoulders of people like Anya and get my work done. I've also stood on the shoulders of Zach Geis. I think of Zach as a server guy and as a data dev, but in putting this together, I realized that he's really the design guy too. So if you look at Zach's design tips catalog, He's using the features similar to what Jeff Plantner did on moving through his visualizations. I'm not sure why it jumped in on slide 13, but we're at customizing colors and such. But if you go to Zach Geist's profile page, this is the featured one, but there are a lot of different workbooks on a lot of different design tips. And so I recommend, again, you follow Zach, and you can hire him if you want to. That's another feature of Tableau Public that I recommend the younger, newer people do if you're looking for a job. It's a great way to build your portfolio and get your name out there. So any discussion of Tableau Public as a resource wouldn't be complete with, I think, these two links. BBC put together a style guide. If you're a lone developer, I recommend you go out and just review how big companies are making their workbooks and vises just really polished by, specifying what the different fonts are and how each of the different visualizations should be for consistency. If you work in a company that has a whole team of Tableau developers, I would recommend you guys, look at this BBC one or the JLL style guide and build one of these of your own for your own company, so that when you have a new developer come on, you can go, here's our style guide. Here's the way we do things. And you can cut and paste these workbooks into your workbooks, and it will look like, it's supposed to for our company. Finally, let me go over a few resources that are available on Tableau Public that you might not know about. More than a website, Tableau Public is also a free application. So if you're a student or a newbie who wants to get into development, you can go get the Tableau Public application, download it, and start playing with Tableau Public for free. Like I say, you can sign up on Tableau Public and have a place to publish your portfolio. If you start working with the different community projects, Workout Wednesday, Makeover Monday, Sports Viz Sunday, you can do those projects and publish those to Tableau Public so people can see how good you are. If you need more data, I don't do sales work. I hate Superstore, but the Tableau Public also has sample data on a wide range of subjects that you can go download and use to explore different types of data. And then finally, there's a beginner's guide to Tableau Public that gets into a lot of features I wasn't able to speak on today. So I recommend you go check out that site. And then finally, if that wasn't enough for you, I will challenge you to download a workbook. I routinely go in, change the TWB to a XML, open it in my favorite editor, and then go in and edit the XML and save it, and then change the name back to TWB. I do it a lot because I work on a development server, and then I publish it on a we'll call it a production server. And it's just easier for me to go in and change that server name since the site structure is the same. And I don't have to go through connecting to another one, undoing, and you can do it all within Tableau Desktop, but it's a lot easier if you just go in and edit the XML. If it's a TWBX file, all the data is in there. So again, if you can download it, you can get into it and you can get to that data. It may not make a lot of sense to you. It's not pretty, but it's there, is what I'll say. And again, I've already showed you how to go into the workbook itself and export it as a CSV. That would be the preferred option if you can do that. If you can't do that, see if you can hack it by getting into the XML. This is a link that shows you how that TWBX file is structured, what the different parts of the XML are, and sort of following up on Anna's comments. If you really like this sort of stuff, join the data dev, get your own server instance, and get that Slack channel subscription so that you can talk to these guys who are giants in the community and talk to the developers too. I mean, you have a straight line into Tableau with that Slack channel. So other than that, thank you for your time today. It was my pleasure putting this together for you, and I hope you learned a little bit something about Tableau Public. That is more than just a bunch of pretty visits. Thank you, and I will stop sharing. Any questions?
Eric, thanks for doing that. You know, the people who are involved in Tableau Public and Tableau community know about these things, and we try to get the word out. We try to let people know about it because it is such a tremendous research. What you did today was just fabulous. By all means, download the workbooks. I mean, I write for you. I mean, I write so that there's something that you can use. You know, I get thrilled when I get a question from somebody that said, well, I was trying to do this and I got in your workbook and I did this and I did that. I get thrilled by that stuff, and all those other guys do too. You know, everybody up there is doing this because we really think it's important. So by all means, do as Eric suggests, download the workbook and learn from it.
If you really want to expand your mind, go download a workbook from one of the Iron Viz winners.
Yeah.
They
Yeah,
do some crazy stuff, man.
Exactly. I think we need to talk about our next meeting, because the next meeting is going to be the last meeting of this year, and we're going to have a data net out. We're just going to go out and have a good time. Okay. We're not going to have long-winded presentations, but I understand there might be some adult beverages involved.
Yes. So it's going to be at the Monday Night Social Club. It's over in North Nashville.
In Germantown.
And
You see, Eric and I always have to turn to Lindsay and say, Lindsay, where is this thing?
where are we going?
I think it's called like the Monday Night Brewing Company in Germantown.
Okay.
And there's
It is
plenty of
Monday Night
parking.
Brewing Company.
Yeah, there's plenty of parking around, I believe.
And I've got,
It is behind a construction zone, so you're going to have to sort of drive through some construction to get there. But once you're there, you're on the river in this great old warehouse district, and they have beer, they have wine, they have mixed drinks, so it's a variety of stuff, and great people to talk with. So that will be the last Wednesday in November from 3:30 to 7.
and one other thing I want to mention here, I see Chuck Hooper up there. Chuck, are you still online? Just unmute yourself and say hi if you are. If any of you are looking for an additional resource on how to use Tableau and in any variety of situations, Chuck's
I am
published.
unmuted. I am still here.
Okay, Chuck, how many books have you published? on
Well, to
how to use
Tableau Public, probably about 10. I typically get a question from someone on how to do something. I'll throw a solution up on Tableau Public, and then it goes away.
Chuck is one of the all-time founding fathers of the stuff that we do. So by all means, look him up any chance you get. If you got a question, really good guy also, obviously. Eric, you have anything else for tonight?
What's that?
I do not.
Oh.
Please, everybody come out November 30th. Let's get together and talk data.